Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into that wild 2026 international friendly between Portugal and Nigeria. And, we're really going to look at this game through one massive lens, the crazy clash between huge expectations and, well, surprising realities. Because let's be real, when a heavyweight like Portugal takes on a super resilient Nigerian Super Eagles squad, the script basically gets thrown out the window. And on this specific night, everything revolved around one absolute legend whose shadow covered the entire pitch. So let's jump right in and see how this historic night actually went down. 228. I mean, just think about the sheer weight of history behind that number. That's Cristiano Ronaldo's 228th appearance for Portugal. Stepping into this match, the hype was completely off the charts. Anytime a guy of his caliber walks onto the pitch, you know history is happening. But 228 caps? That kind of achievement literally defies logic in the modern era of football. Everyone's eyes were glued to him, just waiting for another trademark magical moment to add to an already insane highlight reel. And to hit a milestone like that, it takes 23 years. 23! That's how long his international career spans. For more than 2 solid decades, he's been lacing up his boots for his country. To put that into perspective for you, there are highly rated professional players out on that exact same pitch who weren't even born when he got his first cap. It's wild. That level of longevity, the absolute dedication, and just the physical endurance to stay elite for 23 years, it set this almost impossibly high bar for the evening.
All right, moving on to Section 1, setting the stage for this 2026 friendly.
So coming into this matchup, Nigeria's mindset was honestly really relaxed, but still totally confident. Wilfred Ndidi was rocking the captain's armband, leading a Super Eagles squad that was riding high off a solid win against Poland over in Warsaw. And here's the crucial bit. Their next actually competitive match wasn't until the AFCON qualifiers against Madagascar all the way in September, meaning they were playing with total freedom. The pressure was completely off for a friendly, so they could just play a relaxed, really competitive game without the heavy weight of tournament qualification hanging over them. Which brings us to Section 2, a half of near misses. 144. Look, the fans in the stands were obviously hyping up cap number 288, but what everyone was really holding their breath for was international goal number 144. Literally every single time the ball crossed into the Nigerian half, the entire stadium just gasped. The absolute expectation was that tonight, against this team in this friendly, he was absolutely going to smash that massive milestone. But the reality of those first 45 minutes, it told a totally different story. Right out of the gate, literally 90 seconds in, Ronaldo fires off this incredibly eager first shot. He wanted it badly. But then we hit the mid-first half, and we see this really surprising miss. A ball comes in, everyone, and especially him, is expecting goal 144, but the connection just isn't there. By the late first half, you could see these heavy touches starting to kill his momentum. It was like the ball was always bouncing just a fraction of an inch too far away. That massive eagerness we saw at the 90-second mark, it was slowly turning into visible frustration. The match commentator actually nailed it with this line. It's been a nearly half for the captain, isn't it? That quote perfectly captures the whole vibe on the pitch. He was nearly there. He nearly had the perfect touch. He nearly dropped the record. It's just a beautiful way to sum up that tension between what we all thought was going to happen and the gritty, stubborn reality of a football match where the ball just refuses to cooperate. Okay, Section 3. When others step up. Because at the end of the day, football is a team game, right? And while the spotlight was practically blinding one man, this really fascinating subplot was quietly brewing. The build-up to the opening goal was pure poetry, but it definitely wasn't the poem anyone was planning to write. Diogo Dalot pulls off this gorgeous first touch and plays a perfect cutback pass. Now make absolutely no mistake, that pass was 100% meant for Ronaldo. But in a crazy twist of fate, it zooms right past its intended target and lands right at the feet of Pedro Neto. It's just a brilliant example of how a pass meant to set up a legend's milestone instantly turns into a golden opportunity for someone else. And man, that stray pass was huge for Pedro Neto. He absolutely smashed it into the corner with his favorite left foot, totally ending this painful 4-month goal drought for club and country with just his 3rd international goal ever. But hey, Nigeria's response was just as compelling. Enter Akor Adams. This guy has been playing international ball for barely 6 months, yet he slots home his 6th international goal right here, tying it up 1-1 with just pure strength and perseverance. So picture this. The whole world is obsessing over a veteran hunting his 144th goal, but the actual scoreboard is being dictated by a guy breaking a drought and a new hotshot proving his incredible rising worth. All right, let's look at Section 4, relentless second-half pressure. Heading into the locker room tied at 1-1, you just knew Portugal wasn't going to take this quietly. They came out and utterly dominated possession after the break. João Felix was clearly fired up, unleashing 3 incredibly fierce shots on goal in just a tiny 9-minute window. I mean, he practically forced the Nigerian keeper to make these massive, acrobatic, over-the-bar saves just to keep the Super Eagles alive. And all the while, João Cancelo was out on the wings just repeatedly bending these nasty, dangerous crosses right into the absolute heart of the Nigerian penalty box. It was a total barrage. But right in the thick of that barrage, the frustration for the captain just kept piling up. Cancelo bends a gorgeous cross in, but it arrives just slightly behind Ronaldo. Then he manages to get his head on a slick, wet ball for a flick header, but it totally misses the mark. Finally, he actually finds a gap through the defense, but when it's time to pull the trigger, the clinical finish we're so used to seeing just isn't there. The chances were arriving like clockwork, but that historic final touch was just agonizingly out of reach. And once again, the broadcast booth said what we were all thinking. Oh dear, this really isn't his night. When a player of his insane caliber finds the space, gets elite service, and still comes up completely empty-handed over and over again, you really feel the stark contrast. Portugal was playing with absolute, undeniable dominance as a team, yet their iconic talisman was having a night of deep, super visible personal frustration. So, the clock is ticking down. We are locked at 1-1. Could Portugal reignite the spark before the final whistle? The Nigerian defense was battered for sure, but they were holding strong. The expected hero was having a really off night. Somebody else desperately needed to step up and break this deadlock. This brings us to our final section, Section 5. Conceição finds the tiny gap. Because that big breakthrough, it didn't come from some heavy, thundering strike. Nope. It came from a brilliant, sudden burst of acceleration. Late in the game, when everyone's legs were burning, and the Nigerian defenders had already fought off wave after wave of Portuguese attacks, Francisco Conceição uses this dynamic movement and just blistering pace to suddenly rip open a completely unexpected attacking corridor. And Conceição finds that tiny, impossible gap to lock down the 2-1 victory. In a match where the literal greatest goal scorer in international football history couldn't find his clinical edge, Conceição was just ruthlessly precise. He took that split-second opening, threaded the ball absolutely perfectly into the net, and sealed the win for his team exactly where everyone else had struggled all night long. It was such a stellar moment that even the very best on the pitch had to just stand and applaud. The broadcast actually pointed out that right after Conceição's brilliant solo effort, even Cristiano Ronaldo himself was clapping for the goal. It really cements the whole vibe of the match. On a night completely scripted to celebrate one specific legend's massive 228th appearance, the ultimate respect was actually earned by a dynamic young player who stepped up and seized his moment. And honestly, this 2026 friendly is a masterclass in exactly why we watch this sport. You tune in to the historic 228th cap, but you stay for the wild, unpredictable reality of guys like Pedro Neto, Akor Adams, and Francisco Conceição writing their own headlines. So I'll leave you with this. As the legends naturally draw all the defensive focus and all the world's expectations, who was quietly waiting in the wings to steal the spotlight next? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on the pitch.